Hello, Sabine. Welcome to the Transformational Learning Summit.
Hello, thank you for welcoming me here.
Hmm, really excited to have this conversation. And also, I have such deep respect for your lifetime of work in the field of peace education. And I'd love to start just by asking you a simple question, which is, what does the word transformation mean to
Yeah, what a question.
you?
For me, if I should describe it in very short words, I would say transformation is a kind of awakening to a higher order, to a higher level of identification, where we see how much we are trained to think about ourselves in patterns of conditioning, in patterns of our education. And then there are points where we suddenly come in contact with the matrix of life, I would say, with the matrix, the sacred matrix of life. And we see that nothing is done by ourselves, that in everything what we do, what we practice, and we think it's me as a person, that there stars and nature, earth, water is all connected with it. And this, for me, to come to this kind of awareness and to this kind of deeper trust to the source of life, this for me is the process of transformation where I feel that we as humanity are in.
Hmm.
I think we are so trained in thinking of in patterns of separation. Here is me and there is the world. And the transformation brings us to the awareness that we are part of everything and, in a way, are also holistic beings.
Mhm. I
Yeah.
think I get the sense that much of your life's work has revolved around somehow creating the conditions for people to discover this. And I wonder what you've learned about that in the sense of what have you learned about peace education, about somehow teaching this, or I always hesitate to use the word teaching because it's kind of teaching, but at the same time, it's really about enabling people to discover something, to, like, you use the word identification, and that's always such a key thing for me, is this
Mhm.
really shifting what it is that you identify with. And that's not something you really teach, it's something that people somehow discover. But I wonder what you've discovered or learned in the process of teaching that.
Yeah. Thank you for being more precise in the word of teaching, because I think we are always in our process also learning.
Hmm.
So, and
Hmm.
for me, it's peace is a research question. I think humanity, maybe there is a memory. This I can say. I discovered a kind of memory in our, you can call it Akasha Chronik or however you want to name it, but there is a memory in our cells where we know how people were able for a long time to live in peace, to inhabit this planet Earth in a fully different matrix.
Hmm.
And for me, I name this always to find back to our real source from where we are coming from as human beings. And this rises a memory where we can say we remember to be member of the universe. This is for me remembering to become member again, to
Hmm. Hmm.
to transform separation. And when you ask me what did you learn in the time, I was not aware that the human trauma is so deep. In the
Hmm.
beginning, we thought it's about our lifetime and our trauma in this lifetime, what we can overcome and can transform. But now I feel that it's really a history of more than 5,000 years where we were trained in a culture of domination and in a culture of uh, competition. And this is like in ourselves. And it's deep, deep work to come to this kind of awareness that there is a parallel reality where war does not exist.
Hmm.
I often say, there where there is consciousness, there is no war.
Hmm.
And this we can study in ourselves every
Hmm.
day. We can discover how often we are in the patterns of offending or defending ourselves. And this is, for me, such a deep, deep learning. And when we started the project not here in Tamara, but before, we were in Germany starting, we called it Bauhütte. And it was a cultural research center. How would a civilization look like, which really is in cooperation instead of domination with all beings? And then I saw how many points there are inside of us where there is fear, where we don't really speak the truth. So what does it mean to become transparent? How can we create uh, circumstances where there is trust between human beings? I think we all know it, that we often prefer to be in nature alone, but to see ourselves as part of nature, where we really can be or become who we really are. This is still my process of learning. And to build a group and to live in community, I learned a lot to be able to go to crisis areas or to, for example, we did have pilgrimages in Middle East, where we went from the north of Israel and then through the whole West Bank to Jerusalem with the question, not with the question, with the slogan, "We refuse to be enemies." And by seeing all the human stuff inside of ourselves in group processes, we can learn how can we really build awareness for each other.
Hmm. I love what you shared about when there's consciousness, there can only be peace. So I mean, we don't know each other too well, but 12 years ago, I had a mystical experience, and part of it was that I had a embodied experience of world peace, and that really set me on the journey that I'm doing today.
Mhm.
And my radically simplified definition or understanding of peace is that when you have interaction at sufficiently deep levels of awareness, peace is
Mhm.
inevitable, right? So really, this like consciousness thing.
Yeah.
I'm very curious about this. You know, you use the word research, and I'm curious, what does that mean?
For me, for example, we discovered in building the community that there is so much fear in relationships around the issue of love and sexuality. And there is so often we begin to lie, or there is the fear of loss, or the jealousy question. And when I say research, our research is mainly about how can we create circumstances for civilization where this kind of traumatized patterns can be transformed. And this is, we have no role models in a way. The only thing what I did find is a deep memory. And maybe I also visited indigenous communities where I saw some examples. But the main thing, what you say, to have this experience, out of body experience, where we suddenly come in contact with real peace, how to bring this to the ground, to the way how we inhabit this planet. This for me is the research. And it's connected with ecological question, with energy question, with how we treat nature, how we treat the water. And I discover more and more deep that that the earth is a living being, and we can come in contact, we can learn to communicate, we can ask, who are you? Like I can ask you, who are you? And come to this point where we meet from center to center, and an inner voice is inside of us what gives us answers.
Hmm.
And this is my research since a long time. I do it with animals, with plants, with human beings, with water, and so on. Yeah.
Hmm. Does this also come together in group process? I assume a lot of your research is also in the context of living community or just groups that come together to learn. And then how is that research constructed or conducted in the context of a group of people?
Yeah, we have in Tamara, we are here now since 1995, and we are trying to build civilization for an example how a peace community could look like. And we have the whole year from May until autumn or until November or sometimes December. We have guest seasons here. And there people come and they can study the certain areas which are the most interesting for them. So we have, for example, water retention seminars, or we have seminars around love and sexuality. We have seminars about school and children. So many different levels, and how they, it's always changing how we conduct the seminars. Always, we learn from every seminar new and do the
Hmm.
next step, I would say. It's, but I myself, for example, we had last year two seminars where I bring the European peace memory alive. And I also work together with geomantic women and people from geomanty or Gaia Manti. And we have a role model, the stone circles, many, many, many thousands of years ago, were built all over the globe, stone circles. And for me, they are a symbol of peace communities. And there we go and study this. I published a fully new book about it. It's called The Stone Circle, where we go from birth to death through all the levels where we are growing and how we are connected, children and plants, the growing up children and animals. Then sexuality arises. What is it about? Then the thinking. What is the thinking as a natural part? So we go through the whole cycle of life, and we called it listening to the voice of the earth. And we had a mixture of being in nature, meditation. Then we have forums work where we try in an artistic form to express what is inside of us happening. Or we build the, inspired by Jonna Macy, we do this kind of conference of life where we are speaking as representatives for special species. We
Hmm.
try to feel, how does the water feel at the moment when it goes through pipelines? What is the voice? How does it want to be free? So these are many different levels where we are
Hmm.
dealing in the seminars.
And then how do you have a process for how you learn from a seminar? You said it's always changing and evolving. Like how do you navigate that journey of running a learning experience and then somehow learning from that learning experience for the next one?
Normally, we give to the people afterwards a formula as a feedback. And then we see what they like the most, what they didn't like so much, what they would like to have more. And from there, we always correct a bit
Hmm.
the experiences. And also, I have to say, I'm a very artistic person. I don't love to repeat things. Many
Hmm.
people do always the same. This I can't. I always need to go with inspiration, and
Hmm. Hmm.
from there we work.
I would, I feel like in this domain of what you're teaching, part of it is information, but part of it, I would guess, is also just about being and discovering a new way of being. What do you think is it about the structure of how you approach a learning experience that invites that ontological quality?
How to invite what?
The quality of being, or to
Yeah,
somehow
yeah.
like invite like a new way of being or the discovery of that. What, like how do you think about that when you're somehow constructing a learning experience?
So for us, we are, for example, in the last seminar, we had a full night outside in nature together, and
Mm,
then come together in. We have our own stone circle here in Tamara, where we then come in contact with just awareness, and sometimes with a question. And afterwards, we collect what did we experience. So we do it always. The I can say for me, it's like the balance between yin and yang, and this is also the kind to learn to deal with our intuition. which is very much coming from this being level. And then the giving structure, finding the thinking. So for me, it's like yin and yang, the two parts which always want to play together. And we try to integrate both sides in the seminars and in
Mm.
our work.
Can you give me an example?
An example for the structure, for example, here is a group which meets every morning in the week. They have a certain text and study. They study together around the question what we call the God point. What is meant with the word God? And so
Mm.
then we go along and then we learn to have this conversation where you are really in contact. We're not in like in the university. I remember when people speak so quickly and not really in resonance.
Mm.
So
Mm.
how to
Mm.
create resonance, for example.
Mm. Mm. What does that mean for your resonance?
I would say I always feel resonance in the moment when there are no masks anymore and you come in contact from center to center. It's connected with deep listening, it's connected with the awareness for the now, where we are in just now.
Mm. You do a lot of work around what you call healing biotopes. Can you expand on that a little bit?
I try in short words.
Mm.
So it's also connected with the what I spoke before, with the memory of how we as humanity could inhabit this planet. And we name when we name it healing biotope, it's said that nature by itself knows how to organize life in diversity and unity. And you can go into nature and you see very natural biotopes. And healing biotope means a biotope of nature where also the human beings are part, so that we don't have nature protection there and outside there is human being in cities. But
Mm.
how can we bring nature, our own nature, to awareness? How do we learn to integrate our wild side? And a healing biotope is exactly connected with this question that we, in the ecological work, in the energy work, in all those aspects, always put the question into the center: how does cooperation work? How does is togetherness be mirrored from the way how we live?
Mm.
Yeah.
How do you think about teaching these things like cooperation and being connected to nature?
Again, there for me are the two lines. The one are the study lines, and we
Mm.
have offered a lot of online courses. For example, the Sacred Matrix, Understand with Our Spirit. We say that the thinking was as forbidden as sexuality. People who really ask to its end without fear often are accused because they are not anymore fitting to the pattern where we all agreed in society.
Mm.
So to dare to cross borders, for me, the thinking has a very important part in it.
Mm.
This is the one side, and the other side is then more this kind. For example, when we had rats, I bring a very simple example: rats in our house, how to deal with it. Normally you would take poison and then the thing is okay.
Mhm.
If we say we want to build a peace community, then we say we want to build a peace community with all beings. What does it mean to come in contact with the rats? So I did read in, for example, with Dorothy McLean from Fintorn, how she described how they worked with it in their community, and Eike Braunroth and others. And we did a lot of study. We invited the children. The children wrote letters to the rats. And of course,
Mm.
we are aware that rats can't read. But by focusing and concentrating and trying to come in contact, can we reach the other beings? And like a miracle, it was really that they left the house after 2 days. They were out.
Mm.
They came back. We had to ask, why are you coming back? We want contact. So we built a temple of rats. I named this because for me it was a life changing experience. Before I was I had fear about rats. I felt them ugly and everything. But then they revealed their whole tribal life, how they live in a space where they are welcomed. This is amazing to have these experiences, yeah, to notice it's possible to communicate. And it's work. It's not done with one meditation. It's really work to build this cooperation line.
Mm.
We also have it with wild boars here a lot.
With
And
what?
now, wild boar.
Wild boars, like pigs.
Yes.
Mm, mm.
Yes. And I think in the wild boar tribes, they know Tamara don't hunt, doesn't hunt. And we have a lot of wild boars here, and people really try to work in the garden. That they say, look here, you can work with us. This, please don't touch. This is for us. It's a cooperation work. And
Mm,
the wild boars are very trusting now. They really come close to the houses. And yes, it's a communication
mm.
opening.
You said earlier that the rats revealed to you their tribal nature. Like, what does that mean? Is it a reveal, like an intuitive transmission, or how does that
In
reveal
this
itself?
case, it was both. When I received the message, we want contact, I did choose a place in our valley and went there every day with my drum and started to sing. I thought if people would see me here, they would say she's crazy. But I tried. And I always feel that every being has like a deva, I would call it. And suddenly I felt the contact. Suddenly I felt here, this is the deva of the rats. And then I started to communicate. And then I said, from I don't speak, it's more via meditation. And then I said, if it's true that it is the spirit of the rat, then please show up a living rat that I know it's true. And the day after, the rat came, the first. And then they first started to bring messages. It was always the same. Then they came up with their children and they showed us more and more how they live.
Mm,
So not only in mental or spiritual contact, also in life contact.
mm. There's something else you just said, that it's work, and um, I feel this is an interesting dimension in this question of transformation, because you can participate in a course, you can have that insight, that aha moment, but then either the integration or the true building of the capacity is 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 often quite a lot of work. And I wonder, like, how do you approach that? Because in the context of a global peace revolution, that involves like an entire restructuring of what it means to be a human on the planet right now, and that's work.
Yeah, I think this is the work what we have to bring awareness to that is the transformation work we are in. I feel,
Hmm.
and in Tamara we bring a lot of awareness to building community, and you know when a community is growing and everybody tells his or her story for hours, it becomes boring. So you must find invention, how creativity can enter. So we do a lot of art, for example, and a lot of work which brings us to the awareness that we are not victims of our reality, but that we can, in a privileged situation, contribute towards healing. So we always work also, what is our common purpose? What is our common vision? Do we have a vision? I think this is very important for every community. Is there something which connects all of us?
Hmm.
And I myself, if I go in deep meditation levels, I always see the only way that we can survive as humanity on this planet will that we find decentralized autonomy where we live in togetherness with nature, with water, with fire. And from there, the healing will take place.
Hmm.
And this, for me, it's always nourishing when I see this and I see it's not only a dream, it's a real possibility. Then you have energy and power to do the work, which is not always easy. I just had it now when the war started on the 7th of October. I nearly came close to a burnout because I was so, even that we knew it, that the situation is not in direction of reconciliation. It's becoming more and more complex and more complicated. And when I then meditated deep enough, now I have again the energy to act. I always need to see a healthy picture, and from there I can face conflict. If I don't see the possibility of healing anymore, then it becomes challenging. And I think this is also the reason why many people stay in fear. They even are not aware that they are in fear, and to protect ourselves, because we don't see a picture of future, how we want to live, how do we want to love, how is the feminine and masculine aspect really in coherency, how do we integrate our gender questions in coherency and trust, how do we become who we really are. This for me is the core question. And this for me means also to integrate the wild aspect of life.
So two questions. One is how do you approach the processing of that fear? Because it's such a prevalent condition and that guides so much of human behavior. So what does it mean to process and integrate that? And you mentioned this wild aspect. What does the integration of the wild mean?
Maybe I think we cannot touch this question without touching all the questions around sexuality, because I studied theology, and for me this was really a shock of awakening to see how much the feminine aspect of life was uh, declared as evil in a way, and only that a woman being is a sexual being was the reason to declare Eve as evil, and with her the snake. And when I say there is a memory, then I know that there was a memory where the wild aspect, I call it Lilith, and the mother aspect of a woman were no opposites. They belong together. But when I face the way how we conduct with relationships, then I discover so many people, couples who separate because the fear of loss, because they know that there is a wild aspect in eros, and there is fear instead of wanting to know. And for me, this needs to build a fully new culture, that their trust can arise, that we can make ourselves visible, that we, for example, in this time, also the male aspect, it's such a challenge to be a man, to say, I am a man and I love my sexual nature. If I look what is happening with, it's not easy to say because I honor the Me Too thing very much, that the hidden things, the hidden violence appear and starts to be spoken. It's necessary, but it's also necessary to see the healthy aspect of eros, where also a wild aspect wants to be integrated, wants to be in contact. And this is again for me a civilization question. For me, this is not a personal question. It's also, but mainly a political question, where we have to dare to give our awareness. And we have sometimes here, we have some um, courses where we have 2 or 3 days where we connect with this wild aspect, to perform it, to make it visible. This is very healing. Also the anger, to make the anger visible. If we always suppress our sexual reality and our shadow side, I would name it, then suddenly it comes out as violence. And we know how much violence is also happening connected with torture, with all of those things. And coming to know those aspects deeper enabled me, for example, to go to Colombia, to this peace community where nearly in every family people were murdered, people were killed, were tortured, and to be there, to listen, to hold it, to bring awareness to the suffering, to the pain, without closing the heart. These are for me the processes.
Hmm. I really appreciate what you're saying about the relationship between repression and violence,
Mm.
and how yeah, we live in a societal system that creates these conditions on what is acceptable and what isn't acceptable, and that can translate into the outcomes that we see in the world. Um, how do you mentioned, creating a group experience where some of these things have an opportunity to surface or to be made visible. Can you give me an example of what that might look like?
Again, I did not fully, an example for what? I did not fully
An
get it.
example of how you might surface some of these dynamics, the wild aspect of a person. Like, how do you, if you're teaching or creating a learning experience around healing love in this sense, what's an example of how you might uh, make these dynamics visible, or make them somehow that something that the participants can have a relationship with more awareness?
Mhm. Again, my first answer is we study. For example, my partner and me, we have written the book, They Knew Each Other, the ending of sexual violence. So, this for me, recognizing things and bringing it to awareness is a very, very important aspect because normally, especially in our personal questions around love and sexuality, we are often so identified that we don't want to know.
Mm.
And so the recognizing and the studying part for me is a very important part. And we always in our love school have enough time to do so. And then we have forums work. And for
What is
example,
forums work? What
yeah,
is the
this
word?
is we come together in a group, and it's facilitated by a person, and someone enters to the center, and for example he says, oh, since more than a year I'm struggling with my jealousy, and maybe he says it's very, very shy. Then the facilitator supports this person to bring it clear without fear, to say, look, this I have to face. I have to face my jealousy. And then we say, okay, now you can be the jealous hero from the Greek Olymp, for example, and start to play it out. And this is amazing. We said, seeing is loving. When you really see someone, you start to love. It's amazing. As long as we don't dare, there is a block in the contact. But in the moment where we really dare to show, then it's things open.
Mm.
Or if someone is very deep in anger, then often the forum's facilitator tries to provoke a bit. In the forum, we don't. It's clear that no interfering in the way of violence or beating is taboo. This is in the absolutely clear. But then maybe you start to play also this in a slow way. You go to your anger, you express it, and you are supported to bring it to your own awareness, what you normally don't want to know. So
Mm.
we embrace our shadow side, and also to learn to embrace what we love. Love yourself once visible. It's a challenge. And so it's bringing things to artistic language. This is the forms work. There are
Mm.
many different forms, but this is bringing the community very much together, this kind of work.
Mm. What have you discovered about doing this kind of work online?
Uh, Online, you can't do forum, but
Really?
I think it's not possible, but you can. We had very deep sharings in also in online seminars where suddenly people came in this kind of contact where they dared to express things what they normally don't dare.
Hmm.
So we had just the last bigger online seminar what we had around love and sexuality. A 19-year-old woman, she shared, this was for me the first time in my life that I really felt hold as community, and I could share things what I normally never would make public. So
Hmm.
normally we go to a personal therapist, but
Hmm.
to feel the community itself as the therapy is, this was the revolutionary aspect where we started with.
Hmm.
I have to say it really, the forums work only makes sense if you are committed to stay in a deeper commitment. It can also harm, also to the forum's leader must be very aware when to open, how much to open. And it's important that a forum's leader at once knows now comes my own sympathy or not sympathy into the game. And then has to give to someone else and say, please, you take the lead?
Hmm.
Because I have to express something from myself. I'm triggered from an emotion right now. So
Hmm.
these are always important parts. And this is
Hmm.
often looks very easy. Soon there will be a film about Tamara, the village of lovers. And there are examples of forums work
Hmm.
where one can see what is meant. Yeah.
That's powerful for a facilitator to, in the moment of facilitation, to acknowledge that and step out of the role so that they can or she can become a participant.
It's so important. It's a
Mm.
very, very deep learning. I know examples, for example, the in Austria, the Friedrichshof with Otto Mühl, he was very known about, they called it SD Forum, but I think they misused it. You can misuse it as a power game. Who has the
Mm.
most power? So the intention was to overcome the power, but there it's so important to come to awareness.
Mm.
And really what I would say a forums leader has to learn to become really modest and to know its own ego stuff
Mm.
quite deep.
Can you say a little more of that? I'm kind of going to delve into some uncharted territory here because this isn't a topic I've really talked about before, but there is an implicit power dynamic in the context of a facilitated situation, between the participants and the facilitator, and particularly in the context of a space that's inviting deeper vulnerability and sharing. And I really love that you just talked about this, that yeah, the power implications around also what comes up for the facilitator and how they handle that. Are there is that something that you think about or that you somehow
Of
approach in
course,
terms of like equalizing the space?
I think at the moment it's very much in Tamara awareness around those questions. And people discover that it's a discovery that I suddenly see that I have projection to someone as a leader and don't dare to speak anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
then the anger comes up. These are all humane stuff. And I think a peace civilization has to find again and again new forms to face those questions in a way that at the end the transformation really can happen, where we all are longing for. And the ones who lead forum, they went through a very deep process themselves. And I think it's a bit also Tamara is in a very big transformation process, like I think all communities. If you look to Fintorn, to Damanhur, there is a deep challenge also around the question of leadership. What is co-leadership? What is a
Mm-hmm.
visionary? Which role has the visionary in a community? All of those questions. This is really important. And I myself, I can say I was always led by a vision. And this brought me to Tamara. I'm the co-founder of Tamara, and I dedicated my life for this. And I had a long time this mainly the position of leading. And now I need to step back and really to support from the back that others find this
Mm.
leading position. And this is very, very necessary. The process, I think, if a community will really become like a tribe, these processes we need to understand.
Mm. Is there anything that I think this is such a central question in almost any community? It's something that we live as well with our community of creators. And in the early days, of course, the big part of what makes it what it is our vision and our like just really putting a lot of energy into the space. And then there's a certain process of, of course, what I most want is a community that everyone is co-responsible and somehow co-activating, and that there's an interesting tension there between leadership and people having genuine agency and genuine authority in terms of the direction of the community. And I think I've seen this in almost every single community I've been a part of. I'm also been going to Burning Man for a long time, and we had a camp with 180 people and exact same dynamics. So I'm curious about how what you're maybe learning in the direct experience of this process of you've obviously found it a very notable, as far as like world eco villages go, Tamara is on the top of the list. So what is that process of navigating your own relationship to the leadership and to the community?
Yeah, not so easy to find in short answers. But for me, I learned a lot of patience, and
Mm,
I'm still in the learning to find this kind. When you see suddenly, for example, if the war is growing so much like it's now, and you have close friends there, then you are attached and you feel wounded, and this is normal. So we have to find expressions to our grief, to the grief where we are at. And this is in Tamara also a learning, because sometimes you notice you are attached to your vision. And I learned and had to learn to trust, if my vision is real, it will come through. And then you have another, you can react more relaxed. And I had to learn to deal with positive projections as well as with negative projections, and to find myself in this in the middle.
from other people, or from what do you mean by projections?
Yeah, from other people.
Onto
So
you.
I was often the honored Sabine
Mm,
Lichtenfels and so on, to take it and to know that's not me, but I take it. I stand for it to support people, and I want to give them possibility for this trust, and I want to be as trustworthy as possible. And on the other side, suddenly you are the bad mama, and to know, okay, let's take it, go with it.
mm.
Don't take it personal. It's always this identification question.
Mm,
And I discover more and more deep, and this is for me the deepest learning, that a lot of suffering comes from personhood, identification with personhood, and the sacred matrix is something else. We have a divine nature, and when in the moment when we relearn to fully trust to our divine nature, then all this emotional struggle will be so much more easy. It's not that it's fully gone. I think it's also our task to live in this body situation and to do the work. But identification is a very strong pattern of suffering.
mm. How do you, you obviously, I think there's this interesting dichotomy between the strength of a vision to actually actualize it, and then at some point to hold it loosely and to be able to let it go and to live that letting go moment to moment while still holding the vision. And I'm just wondering, is there any kind of internal practice or orientation that has helped you do that, or something that you've cultivated internally? Also, having people kind of project you or then, bash you because you don't live up to their expectations. Like, what is it internally that helps you loosen that identification and yet remain strong in stewarding this vision in the community?
I can say in the first years, I received the vision, I acted, and from there, manifestation came. And it were many miracles. I think a bit like Finton, one miracle after the next, how the money came, or everything happened. And I would say there is a sentence what I still believe, from a real vision, manifestation comes by itself. Then the community grew, and more people, more and more different cultures. And my main learning here was that not to become impatient, because in the beginning it was so easy, and now more and more different aspects from the vision want to enter to the whole. And if you see the picture that a peace community only will work when everyone finds his or her own vision, it, then you start more to support. And for me, this is for me. I would name my process to become a real elder. And in our society, there is no role model for this. There you feel old people are out. And so to face this kind of inner, what is my next vision? And so that it's not so important whether you are very accepted at the moment or not so much accepted, you stay with your vision. This for
Mm.
me is always like the compass, the
Mm-hmm.
sacred
So it's
compass.
not about you, it's about the vision. I love what you said about patience. One of my favorite quotes from A Course in Miracles. Are you familiar with that book? A Course in
What
Miracles?
book?
A Course in Miracles.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And so one of my favorite quotes that's always stayed with me is only infinite patience brings immediate results.
Yeah. Uh, mm,
um, you said something that really touched me about that a community only take roots when each person finds their own vision. And there's something there that is both very poetic and also very tangible. What does that mean? You know, like in practice, like you have this vision for a global peace community, and now you have these members. And what does it mean for the members of a community that's guided by similar values and vision to find their own version of that vision?
mm. Maybe I have to come back there to the stone circle, because for me, when I was looking for Tamara uh, in the beginning of the 90s, for 3 years I dedicated my life to find the place where we can manifest
For the
the
land,
so-called,
to find the land.
yeah, the final land, exactly.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I'm committed, and I said I will find the place. I received the message until 1995, you have to find the place. If not, it's too late. Okay. So I went for it. And this 3 years, I dedicated my life, and we had vision places and asked the country, is it our place or not? Many things failed. On this level, I was guided to the stone circle in Evora. It's built 7,000 years ago, the biggest and
Where is
oldest
this,
stone circle
Deborah?
in Europe. It's in Portugal, maybe 150 kilometers far from, more north from Tamera. And when I came to this place, I was so touched. Something touched me, my cellular system. And there I had the first time, I visited this place really often then. The first time I received the memory of a peace community on the deepest level I ever saw before. And I saw the people, how they lived. And I can't prove whether it's true or not, but I saw it so clear. And this was like receiving a vision in my cell system. And there, every stone, there are 96 stones, is standing for an archetype. And every being is carrying an archetype in its soul, independent from which culture we are educated in. It's like a universal archetype. And they are in, what's the word in English? They are in a common flow. They together build the unity. And this is amazing when you suddenly come to this recognition, this is me in the whole, and I am the whole. This is
Mm,
a transparency, not a transformational experience.
mm,
And if you come more and more in contact to this, then you suddenly know, oh, in this lifetime, I have to become a gardener. This is bringing my vision to
mm,
reality. Another one receives, I have to become a global player. And you suddenly recognize your real profession in a way like, this is how I am meant. And for me, this is the stone circle is standing for this kind of archetype where a community is built in a way that every member really did figure out his or her own place where she or where we feel this is my
mm,
place, I have to hold
mm,
it. This is my
mm,
response to the whole, my
mm,
responsibility.
mm.
And we
That's
work a lot with this in Tamara. I wrote a whole book. I channeled all the different aspects from the 96 archetypes and take it, we often take it as inspiration for our week, for our life. And we positioned aspects where we are in close cooperation with as a community.
mm,
Because I feel also every community has its own call, its own purpose, its own vision. And this brings the diversity and the beauty of life.
it also makes me feel what you're describing is like the expression of belonging that I have found my place, my purpose, my
Yeah,
like who I am to be a contributor to this community. I feel that that's when my my security in not in securities and I feel safe, but my securities and I feel that I'm part of the fabric of this space is that I have kind of found my vision here.
yeah, exactly.
Mm,
Yeah, beautiful described. Um, I think we often look home. We look for home in our partnership. We look for home in our family, and it's all good. But if we don't find our home inside of ourselves and our higher self is our partner,
mm,
then we always have this fear of loss, and this brings so much suffering into the relationships. But I remembered this moment when I suddenly, it was this feeling, I was in the stone circle and there came, I meditated and then came a picture. Look how you will be with 96. And I said, what, why this? And I first refused a bit. And then it came again, very strict. Look who you are when you are 96. And then I dared. How will I be? How could I live? Will I still be feel sensual? And then I found a picture where I felt, wow, with this I can go. And this gave like a, we call it the entelechy energy that we all carry a wisdom inside of us which knows how we want to grow. Like a
mm,
tree, you have a seed of a tree, and in the seed is the whole information for the whole tree. And imagine this would also be true for tribes, for tribal wisdom, that there is a seed for a community. And when we connect with this seed, we know how to grow. It's not a knowing from the mind, it's a different knowing.
mm, mm. What do you feel is the intersection of community in this sense and learning?
My feeling is that community is the quickest learning and going towards enlightenment and
But
a
I mean
deep.
also in the sense of the learning that is the process of the community becoming what it is. I don't know if I'm quite articulating it properly, but I feel that I mean some communities are explicitly learning communities and some are not. And in some sense, what I gather from Tamara is that there's a very active component which is about learning, about
Mhm.
it directly having learning experiences that somehow make the community also what it is.
Yeah. Um, and on a certain way, I would say this is a humane tool which exists everywhere, not only in Tamara. I
Mm.
would also say community itself is, it's like breathing. We are community members, whether we want or not. We are. Even a hermit, even someone who is really living lonely at any place, from its being, he is part of community. And when I say community in this sense, I mean community with life, community that I have this fingernail here. There is the Venus or the stars are in it, that I can speak. The air is part of it. Only miracles. I cannot explain why I can sit here and speak. And this is the miracle of community where we normally are not aware.
Mm.
And this is really when there suddenly your fear of loss disappears, while you regain your trust, like a tree knows where to grow, it's in us. And this is the learning. Life is my teacher. Often people say, "Oh, Tamara, you are happy because you have community." And I said, "Yes, but in the beginning we were three. It was a deeper decision." And I think whether I would live in a town, in a city, in New York, or wherever, I naturally, you would, in a trust modus, you would look where are the people around me which are interested in the same thing, and how can we learn to communicate and cooperate that trust appears. For me,
Mm.
this is a life question.
Mm. Mm.
And Tamara has many people I think much to ideal. Tamara as an ideal, it's not. We have all the normal human stuff here, but there is a decision. We are connected with a vision. This maybe is really the what brings holds us in
Mm.
this living
Mm.
energy.
So much of what I'm getting from some of the examples you've shared is that it really lands in the space of communication, of how people
Yeah,
communicate around whatever might be coming up. How are there any specific, or maybe can you give me an example of a specific practice that you do as a community to somehow support your communication?
we have many different levels. One I said already, the forum. Then we have regularly plenum. And on the organization level, we are in a big shift, and the young people do a lot to bring transparency to all the different areas we are holding, that people know about decisions, that we don't have too long sitting together, so that we really are staying transparent and informed. This is very important part.
Hmm.
And can you once, I lost your question. Can you once more?
A specific example of a practice, for example, you mentioned this word transparent communication.
Yeah,
What is a process that you use to create this transparency around a
yeah.
conversation?
Yeah, this what I said before. We have the kind of forum where we have also sometimes only sharing, sometimes with art. We also have meditation every day. It's offered for people. We have what we call a women's council, where if people have very special questions or they need more deeper support, they normally come first to the women's council. We have deep listening and sharing, and from there we look what is the next step.
Hmm.
And also we have regularly, at the moment it's once a week, at Saturday, we have a place, what we call our Temple of Love, where people come together to bring transparency and to their life love questions. So, and then we have working time, of course, working time together. This brings, I often feel in the moment where you have a common purpose, it brings people much more easy together. If
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
lose this, you are very quick lost in conflicts.
But I'd love to just touch that for a moment because I feel that inevitably when you're working on something meaningful, as a team, as a group of people, things come up. You have subtle frustrations, subtle things that don't get communicated. It's very easy to build on that, and can take a certain level of discipline to, or not just discipline, but also skill to understand how to communicate about something um, in a way that allows that conversation to be constructive. So, is there a way that you cultivate that internally around, um, you know, conflict or difficult conversations?
Yes. Also, there are different forms. Um, in the beginning, the main form was forum, always.
Mm,
But we also have, for example, councils where we share in a council, or we have sometimes a conflict is too much in a team, grew too much on a personal level, then they invite someone and
mm,
say we need someone who facilitates that we can really share what the conflict is. So many different forms how we deal with it.
mm,
And we also now in the last years sometimes we took facilitation from outside, people who are not involved in Tamara. To, for example, Miki Kashtan was here. She's a non-violent teacher, or very radical, studying non-violent, and she is very trained in building structure um, to this level that everyone feels I can really bring in what is my interest. I can bring in my voice. This was for mainly for the younger generation, very helpful. So we have
mm.
many
To have
different.
an outsider come in was helpful.
Yes, I think yes. For
Mm,
yes.
mm, mm.
Mhm.
So I think the final question I want to ask you, Sabine, you've used this word sacred matrix a few times, and I'd love to ask you to expand on that a little bit. What does that mean to you?
Mm. You mentioned before that you had this experience out of body where you suddenly come in contact with the virtual reality, where it's a deep, deep transformation process. And I experience again and again that there is a matrix of life which creates the miracle of healing, which creates the miracle of growth, the miracle of life. And I feel the main call that we as human beings find back to this matrix. And this for me is the core question, whether we will survive on this planet or not. Will we follow the matrix of war, which was invented by human beings, or will we follow the matrix of life and coming in resonance with the frequency on so many different levels, on the invisible and visible energies? So I would say it's the base harmony of the universe, what I faced as reality. And my feeling is that on a virtual level, the the information how to create peace is already there, but it needs our open channel, and it needs the readiness not only to stay imprisoned in our mind and in our conditioning, but really open. And from there, another level of recognizing and thinking can enter to our heart, and we can learn to really think with an open heart. And an open heart will create another kind of reality than traumatized heart and reality.
Mm. Thank you, Sabine. I really
Yeah,
appreciate having this opportunity to connect with you, and you sharing just so openly about your journey and how, what you've learned at Tamara. And I have so much respect for your work and who you are and what you do, and really appreciate it.
thank you. Thank you for your open interest, and may it serve the whole. I think we all need each other. We need the net of life at the moment. The In German I say vernetzte Intelligenz, like a spider builds a net where we see the points of hope. Yeah.
Mm. That's a beautiful note to end on, the points of hope.
Yeah.
Thank you.